Russia has fired tens of thousands of drones at Ukraine this year, trying to win the winter by freezing cities and breaking morale.
Yeah, the attack was early this morning, starting fires and scattering debris.
But what Vladimir Putin didn't count on was Ukraine answering with something unprecedented. A coordinated long-range strike using the Flamingo missile with 3,000-kilometer range designed to hit deep inside the Russian mainland. What if this single weapon just fundamentally shifted the entire war? Forget everything you thought you knew about Ukraine's defenses. We're about to expose this game-changing system that military analysts are still scrambling to understand, and break down exactly what it means for the future of this conflict. Russia wants this phase of the war to look one-sided. Waves of Russian drones have hammered Ukrainian cities, scorched infrastructure, and filled social media with images of burning buildings and blacked-out streets. Kremlin propagandists presented as proof that Ukraine's defenses are fraying, that Russia can escalate at will, and Kyiv can do nothing but absorb the blows. But that is only the surface. The deeper story is about a new weapon and a shift in the balance of pressure. Ukraine has been hit hard, but it is not helpless. Its answer did not come in the form of scattered drones or small symbolic strikes. It came in the form of a long-range, domestically built weapon that can reach deep into the Russian mainland and hit the very infrastructure that keeps Putin's war machine running. Ukraine's Flamingo missile has officially entered the war. Here's how it unfolds. Russia attempts to dominate the winter through relentless drone attacks, aiming to wear down Ukraine's energy system and morale. But Ukraine's coordinated retaliation proves Russia's rear areas are now vulnerable. The story begins with a pair of Russian aerial assaults that unfolded over 2 brutal nights. On the night of November 11th, Russia launched 119 drones of various types at Ukraine. According to RBC Ukraine, the targets were spread across the country. Contested frontline regions like Donetsk, Dnipropetrovsk, and Kharkiv, as well as the key southern hub of Odessa. These drones reportedly took off from both Russian territory and the illegally annexed Crimean Peninsula. Extending the threat envelope across hundreds of kilometers, Ukraine's air defenses fought back, but they couldn't stop everything. By 9:30 a.m. on November 11th, Ukrainian forces had shot down 53 of Russia's Shahed and Geran-type drones. That is not a small number, but it was still less than half of what Russia sent. The remaining 59 drones slammed into at least 18 separate locations across the country. RBC Ukraine did not immediately detail the full extent of the damage. What it did make clear was more unsettling. The strike was still ongoing and Russia wasn't finished. On November 12th, it doubled down. RBC Ukraine reported a second massed strike, this time involving 138 drones of various types, again launched from Russia and Crimea. This wave came with an extra punch, an Iskander-M ballistic missile to accompany the drones. Ukraine's defenders fared better in round 2. Repair shops, administrative buildings, and key nodes in Ukraine's energy network were damaged. Throughout 2025, Russia has leaned heavily on drones as one of its primary tools of pressure. Chatham House analyst John Loft noted that since early October, most of Russia's major aerial attacks have targeted Ukraine's energy infrastructure. By November 10th, he counted 9 massed strikes against the energy system alone. The assaults on November 11th and 12th likely pushed that number to 11. Putin's goal is simple. He is advancing slowly on the ground, paying a high price in manpower and armor for minimal territorial gains. So he is once again trying to win the winter instead, by knocking out power plants, transformer stations, and distribution nodes, and by plunging Ukrainian cities into darkness and cold. Loft describes this as an attempt to create psychological pressure, to grind down public morale until Ukrainians begin to question whether the war can be sustained. The scale of Russia's drone dependence in 2025 is staggering. On November 4th, the outlet Metsa reported that Russia had launched around 44,000 Shahed-type drones at Ukraine in the first 10 months of the year alone. Roughly 4,400 drones per month on average. Overall, Russia has fired about 303% more drones in 2025 than in 2024, a figure that speaks to how quickly its drone industry has been mobilized and how aggressively it is now being used to saturate Ukraine's defenses. A country under constant aerial assault faces another hard winter, with Russia betting that blackouts and exhaustion will break Ukraine, where ground attacks have failed. If you value this kind of context, consider sharing your perspective in the comments to connect these numbers to real lives and strategy. Ukraine, however, was not prepared to simply grit its teeth and wait for the next wave, wobbled but not broken. It chose to answer with something far more ambitious than a few isolated hits. Instead of a limited, symbolic response, Kyiv ordered a widespread, coordinated strike that reached across multiple Russian regions and occupied territories. At the center of that retaliation was a weapon that had been the subject of rumors and hints for months: the Flamingo. The Flamingo is a hybrid between a drone and a cruise missile, and it represents a new level of long-range striking power for Ukraine. The International Institute for Strategic Studies cites a reported range of around 3,000 kilometers, roughly 1,860 miles, that puts almost any mission-critical Russian target within reach, including Moscow and its surrounding industrial and logistical hubs. When a Flamingo hits, it does not do so lightly. Reports suggest a warhead of up to 2,535 pounds of explosives, more than enough to seriously damage hardened facilities, including key nodes in the Russian oil and energy sector that Ukraine has been systematically targeting throughout 2025. According to UK Rinform, the Flamingo can reach speeds of up to 900 kilometers per hour, about 560 miles per hour, placing it in a performance bracket that invites comparisons to Western cruise missiles, like the Tomahawk, which Kyiv had once hoped to receive. For Russia, the absence of Western-supplied missiles of that class may have looked like an opportunity. Without them, the Kremlin could assume that Ukraine's reach deep into the Russian mainland would remain limited. The Flamingo has shattered that assumption, and on the night of November 12th into November 13th, it moved from rumor to confirmed reality. A few hours later, Ukraine's general staff posted a telegram statement that changed the scale of what we were looking at. Oriol, it said, was only one of many targets. The strike of November 12th to 13th was a complex operation aimed at several dozen logistical and military facilities across both the Russian Federation and the Russian-occupied parts of Ukraine. The goal, the general staff said, was to reduce Russia's military, economic, and offensive potential by hitting objects that directly support the occupation army. Strike UAVs, jet drones, and multiple types of missiles were used, including several long-range domestic systems such as the Flamingo and Bar. Given the scale of the operation, you might expect Moscow to respond loudly, boasting of its air defense successes, framing the attack as terrorism, or claiming to have neutralized every incoming missile. Instead, the official reaction has been muted. The only substantive Russian comment came from the Oriol region, where the Flamingo missiles were reported. Regional Governor Andrei Klitkov announced an air raid alert on Telegram and acknowledged that enemy attacks had continued, that air defenses had destroyed several targets, and that shrapnel had damaged cars and balconies in residential areas. He noted there were no reported casualties. There was no mention of the damaged thermal power plant. That silence is familiar. Russia rarely admits that Ukrainian long-range strikes are having real effects on its infrastructure. There is another crucial element to this story. The General Staff's reference to the Flamingo, combined with photographic evidence of the missiles being prepared for launch, marks the first time Ukraine has officially confirmed using the system against Russia. Before this, Flamingo existed in a gray zone of rumors and partial hints. On October 10th, United 24 Media reported that some pro-Kremlin Telegram channels had acknowledged Flamingo strikes against Russian targets in September and October, including a possible hit on a Russian FSB border service vessel. But there was no formal confirmation from Kyiv. The November 12th to 13th operation changes that. Now, we have official confirmation that Flamingo missiles were part of a major strike deep into Russia. And Ukraine is not treating this as a one-off. According to a November 4th article quoting Zelensky, Kyiv's goal is to push Flamingo into mass production by the end of 2025 as part of a broader push to build its own long-range strike capabilities. He did not provide numbers, but the intent is unmistakable. Ukraine wants a homegrown arsenal that can consistently reach into Russia without relying solely on Western deliveries. for Ukrainian civilians who spent hours under Russian drone bombardment. Technical details about procurement scandals or production targets will not matter. What matters is that their country's armed forces sent a clear message back to Moscow. Russia's drone terror will be answered, not just with isolated strikes, but with deep, coordinated blows against the infrastructure that keeps the war going. The Flamingo is no longer a rumor or a promise on a podium. It is in the sky, it is hitting Russian targets, and it is forcing the Kremlin to confront a new reality. Ukraine can now reach far beyond the front line with weapons it builds itself. The days when Russia could treat its rear areas and energy assets as untouchable are over. And as Ukraine's Flamingos make headlines for their long-range precision, Russia's own invincible missiles are facing problems of their own. Putin once boasted that his hypersonic Kinzhal missiles could not be stopped. Ukraine has found ways to bring them down without firing a single shot. If you value sober, in-depth coverage of Ukraine's long-range strikes and Russia's shifting tactics, consider subscribing to the channel and sharing this analysis. It helps more people follow the war with clear eyes and honest context, instead of the filtered version that appears on propaganda feeds.